Ulmesia switched to a more serious expression and said, "By the way, don't you still need to reply to their invitation?" Elalud nodded along in earnest. Ulmesia explained, "Whether it is the dessert shop or the rights to the road, Demon Lord Rimuru understands human society well. There's no doubting his status as a former Otherworlder, but now he possesses the power and authority to utilize his knowledge and experience fully. To put aside his status as Demon Lord, the person alone is already very impressive. The students of Hiro Shizuozawa, whether it is the head of the Freedom Association Yuki Kagurazaka or commander of the Holy Knight Order Hinata Sakaguchi, both have some power in the Western nations, yet they cannot rival Demon Lord Rimuru. If we want to be on good terms with him going forward, we can't afford not to attend this. I never had a choice from the start." Emperor Ulmesia made her decision. Elalud had no more words to say. However, something was still on his mind. He says, "Madam, I do agree. I'll find a way to shut the others up. But we can't ensure the security of that nation. Regarding the people to accompany you during the visit. They knew Rimuru engaged in armed conflict with the Holy Knights not long ago. The battle, which ended overwhelmingly in Rimuru's favor, reportedly featured far fewer casualties than what the world saw in Pharmas's invasion. That was to show the public his confidence, though it also led to people spreading rumors about the naivety of Demon Lord Rimuru. For someone who knew the inside truth, it was enough to make you sweat off attacking Tempest forever, but there were plenty of clueless people out there looking to test their strength. Moreover, the powerful individuals of the world could no longer ignore him, for if they did, the number of conflicts against that nation would undoubtedly increase. It's unlikely anything would happen to Demon Lord Rimuru, but the security there may get worse. It's fine for Elalud's side, but he's afraid for their madam's sake." These thoughts were circling in Elalud's head, but since the Emperor had made her decision, Elalud could only brace himself and prepare for the upcoming trials and tribulations. Ulmesia commanded, "Fine. Then let us deploy some Empire-affiliated forces. I'd like you to choose several from the Magus to guard me." Elalud broke in sweat after hearing this. About this Magus order, they were the higher-ranked military order also known as Knights of Purity. They acted as her mediators, and their ranks were open only to those who could trace their bloodline far back into nobility. The Magus were hailed the most powerful military force of Sorcerer's dynasty Sarian, and by the way, Elalud was one of them. The existence of the order was a carefully guarded state secret, yet the Emperor had generously ordered them to move out. Elalud faithfully obeyed her order with caution. He replied, "Understood. I will send out the word at once." He then left the scene shortly thereafter. The matter of the Emperor's outing was decided and would subsequently be announced to the nation. And so the series of sleepless nights for Duke Elalud unfolded. Now, the location is on the third kingdom, which is Blumund Kingdom. Miles was a highly renowned merchant and felt increasingly anxious not knowing when he would be finishing all of his appointments. Miles had a knack for accurately judging people with a single glance. Occasionally, he'd see nobles who'd fallen on hard times and approaching him with all manner of fishy-sounding offers. He finished dealing with a conman-looking fellow while concerned about that and called in the next guest. A well-dressed man entered. However, his dapper appearance couldn't fool Miles' eyes. Miles can figure out that it was old clothing and out of style. While bearing this thought, Miles decided to hear the person out. Unsurprisingly, he got even more annoyed after hearing him out. This man, Viscount Kazak, wished to open a new shop with his slaves, so he came to loan some money from Miles. They both discussed about the business and Miles could tell it wouldn't be successful from the onset. Employing attractive female slaves wouldn't nearly be enough to make the business work. Viscount Kazak needed to thoroughly analyze the market, his client base, and his potential location, not to mention employee costs. Viscount Kazak said, "Huh. It's your job to find the place. And asking me to pay those girls? What a silly question. Who in the world would give salary to slaves? Even if forcing the slaves to work without pay was the whole point, you had to provide them with food regardless. And clothing and a place to sleep. Also, huge money must be spent in order to find beautiful women, but it won't escape the fact that she would unavoidably age in the end. The money earned through them would hardly be sufficient to recover the initial investments. That is how Miles saw it. If you were aiming for sexually themed establishment, it could cause the spread of disease in the region if appropriate preparations were not made. Should things end like that, not only would Viscount Kazakh face serious problems, but Miles would also become his accomplice. Miles tried to turn him down to prevent trouble, but Viscount Kazakh wasn't buying it. Viscount defends, "Oh, about that. I actually have an in. I'll tell you about it too, if you're willing to invest. But surely you get what I mean, this is some top secret information. And all I can say is that those slaves are all elves." Miles feels sick to the bone after hearing those words. He did his best to maintain composure as he was a famous merchant and couldn't just show his dislike of others on his face. Compared to that, Miles was more intrigued by the elven slaves mentioned by Viscount Kazakh. If what he said was true, then it was no longer some simple matter such as regular high-quality slaves. Miles was the head of a syndicate, so illicit affairs isn't new to him. However, he would still know where to stop before things got out of hand. It didn't mean he should be forgiven just because of that, but he still didn't wish to cross that line of extreme evil. Since Miles was intensely familiar with shady deals, he couldn't ignore the grave danger that came with buying elven slaves. Elves were exceptionally long-lived. Many boasted mesmerizing beauty. They were intelligent, and most of them were well-versed in magic. A realization suddenly crossed Miles' mind. He had heard about monster hunts, where some wealthy people wished to get a classy pet, they would hire hunters to capture monsters in the forest. But if a demi-human had been snared by one of these hunters, or more precisely, of the half-spirit race that elves were, quite a few nations would never let it go without comment. The Dwarven Kingdom consisted of demi-humans, and as for Sorcerer's Dynasty Sarian, the Emperor is an elf. If this got exposed, it would lead to severe problems. This wasn't a small-time pickpocket or fraud, it was the kind of things that could trigger an international standoff. Miles certainly didn't dare to carry out such an ordeal so uncaringly. Miles sensed several red flags popping up. He drained his brain thinking, trying to find an appropriate excuse to turn down Viscount Kazakh's demands. But at the right timing, someone opened the door and entered. The person said, "Hey. How have you been? Miles-kun." Miles thinks that the girl has an angelic beauty with light blue silver hair and golden eyes. Wait, or could he be a boy? Viscount Kazakh got mad and exclaimed, "Who are you, and how dare you interrupt my important business meeting?" Miles was shocked to discover the identity of the visitor. There was no way he could forget that face, the hero who saved Miles, the real demon lord Rimuru in person. He knew Rimuru was the ruler of the monster kingdom, and he also heard that Rimuru wanted to become a real demon lord. At the time he was quite surprised. But Rimuru really did it and was now part of the OCTAGRAM, recognized by the other demon lords. With that being said, Demon Lord Rimuru seemed to have taken a liking in Miles. They would often meet up, occasionally working together on potential new business ventures. He had asked Miles to find ways to sell healing potions, and soon after that he asked Miles for a favor to help him explore the market in order to sell otherworld food, such as ramen. They were now being served in restaurants and received great reviews. Now, more recently, Rimuru had him taste test something called a hamburger, talking about building chain of restaurants specializing in their production and sale. Miles is hands-on with all these and wanted to show his gratitude to Rimuru for all these things. But Rimuru seemed to have been busy lately. It had been a month since they last had any contact. Miles asked, well, if it isn't Master Rimuru. Didn't you say that it is currently a critical time period and that you have no spare time to stroll around? Since this person, Master Rimuru or Demon Lord Rimuru, was currently busy confronting issues between himself and the Holy Knight Order. He even advised Miles to avoid Tempest for a while, as it would be too dangerous for him. There was also the Freedom Association branch leader Fuse, who had been overly frustrated over the fact that he was incapable of stopping Hinata the Saint himself. All of that was supposed to be the case, but how did the main person involved suddenly appear here? A moment later Miles heard his servant running in to intervene in panic while shouting, "Please hold on. Our master is still in a meeting." His servant suddenly stopped and stared at Rimuru. Apparently, some people were still not used to the effect Rimuru carries. One not used to looking at that beautiful face would quickly lose their minds over it. Miles couldn't really blame the servant for his behavior. Viscount Kazakh attempted to interject, "Did you just call him Master Rimuru?" But Miles ignored him. Rimuru seemed to have noticed the guest and looked quite embarrassed. Rimuru said, "Oh, sorry. So you have a guest here. Then I'll stop by your estate to wait for you there. I'll see you later." Miles was still in a state of shock until Rimuru's words brought him back to his senses. He began to feel honest pity for Viscount Kazakh, the Viscount who told a demon, "How dare you," to his face. If Rimuru wasn't so easygoing, Miles doubt the Viscount would be breathing right now. While oblivious to Miles' concern, Viscount Kazakh continued to shout rudely, "Oi, brat. Actually, little girl, I guess. What are you, Miles' mistress or something? You barged in to eavesdrop without permission and interfered with our important business. How do you plan to compensate?" Viscount Kazakh started to spout such things as he saw Rimuru's face. Miles was immediately filled with displeasure at the sound of it and thinks, how dare he talk to Master Rimuru like that? Rimuru lowered his status and replied, "How impolite of me. No one managed to stop me, so I'm really sorry." Yet Viscount Kazakh decided to pull prank and not forgive him. He said, "You know, I like your face. Mannerism is quite important, however, luckily for you, I wouldn't mind giving you a private lesson on that." Now even Miles was angered, his feeling could no longer be described with being stunned. He was completely dumbfounded. It was one thing that Rimuru got looked down on, but he went on to call Rimuru, who Miles was indebted to, his mistress. The behavior of Viscount Kazakh had exceeded Miles' limit of tolerance. Miles finally lets go of his thoughts. "Oi, Kazakh, you are being rude to the individual who saved my life. You are but a Viscount, do you intend to piss me off?" The Viscount is surprised and only said, "What?" And Miles responds, "My business with you ends this instant. Do not come to me for any favor in the future." And Kazakh answers, "How dare you? A merchant, rebelling against nobility. Miles, have you lost your mind?" And Miles defends himself, "Anyone willing to work with criminal groups and trigger cross-border crises is nothing but trouble to me. I hope a plague bringer like you would scram as soon as possible." Which made the Viscount mad. "Miles. After all the favors I've done for you. Mark my words, I'll make you regret this." With that, Kazakh stormed out of the office. Miles gave his remark, "Ha. This child, thinking he rules the world." And Rimuru said, Miles-kun? That guy seems pissed, is everything okay?" Like that, Rimuru casually made small talk with the furious Miles. He thinks that Rimuru is like nothing on this world, and so he relaxed. He may have become a demon lord, but he hasn't really changed a bit. Afterward, he rejected all of the people waiting to meet him in the next room and asked all of them out. He didn't wish to keep Rimuru waiting. It wasn't because Rimuru would bring him enormous profit, he wasn't that short-sighted. Rather, he saw an extraordinary virtue within Rimuru, that being how he still had his trade partner in mind despite the difficult circumstances he himself was in. He knew Rimuru helped him out in his time of greatest need, and he thus felt an obligation to never betray him. He couldn't think of any work that could be more important than spending time with Rimuru. Miles grows excited as he tries to guess what's going on Rimuru's mind. Is he up to some new devious idea? A secret surge of joy flooded his heart. And on that day, a new opportunity arose that would put an end to the frustrating life Miles was living.